Okay, so this is the dialogue called Crito by Plato, and we start off with a little introduction. Let me read it to you. About the time of Socrates' trial, a state galley had set out on an annual religious mission to the small Aegean island of Delos, sacred to Apollo, and while it was away, no execution was allowed to take place. So it was that Socrates was kept in prison for a month after the trial. The ship has now arrived at Cape Sunium in Attica and is thus expected at the Piraeus Athens port momentarily. So Socrates' old and faithful friend, Crito, makes one last effort to persuade him to escape into exile, and all arrangements for this plan have been made. It is this conversation between the two old friends that Plato professes to report in this dialogue. It is, as Crito plainly tells him, his last chance, but Socrates will not take it, and he gives his reasons for his refusal. Whether this conversation took place at this particular time is not important, for there is every reason to believe that Socrates' friends tried to plan his escape and that he refused. Plato more than hints that the authorities would not have minded much as long as he left the country. Alright, that is the end of the introduction. So, two characters here are Socrates and Crito. And when I say, like, for example, Socrates, and I stop, then that's how you know Socrates is speaking. So, let's start. Socrates. Why have you come so early, Crito? Or is it not still early? Crito. It certainly is. Socrates. How early? Crito. Early dawn. Socrates. I am surprised that the warder was willing to listen to you. Crito. He is quite friendly to me by now, Socrates. I have been here often, and I have given him something. Socrates. Have you just come, or have you been here for some time? Crito. A fair time. Socrates. Then why did you not wake me right away, but sit there in silence? Crito. By Zeus, no, Socrates. I would not myself want to be in distress and awake so long. I have been surprised to see you so peacefully asleep. It was on purpose that I did not wake you, so that you should spend your time most agreeably. Often in the past, throughout my life, I have considered the way you live happy, and especially so now that you bear your present misfortune so easily and lightly. Socrates. It would not be fitting at my age to resent the fact that I must die now. Crito. Other men of your age are caught in such misfortunes, but their age does not prevent them resenting their fate. Socrates. That is so. Why have you come so early? Crito. I bring bad news, Socrates. Not for you, apparently, but for me and all your friends. The news is bad and hard to bear. Indeed, I would count it among the hardest. Socrates. What is it? Or has the ship arrived from Delos, at the arrival of which I must die? Crito. It has not arrived yet, but it will, I believe, arrive today, according to a message some men brought from Sunium, where they left it. This makes it obvious that it will come today, and that your life must end tomorrow. Socrates. May it be for the best. If it so please the gods, so be it. However, I do not think it will arrive today. Crito. What indication have you of this? Socrates. I will tell you. I must die the day after the ship arrives. Crito. That is what those in authority say. Socrates. Then I do not think it will arrive on this coming day, but on the next. I take to witness of this a dream I had a little earlier during this night. It looks as if it was the right time for you not to wake me. Crito. What was your dream? Socrates. I thought that a beautiful and comely woman dressed in white approached me. She called me and said, Socrates, may you arrive at fertile Phthia on the third day. Crito. A strange dream, Socrates. Socrates. But it seems clear enough to me, Crito. Crito. Too clear it seems, my dear Socrates. But listen to me even now and be saved. If you die, it will not be a single misfortune for me. Not only will I be deprived of a friend, the like of whom I shall never find again, but many people who do not know me, I mean, but many people who do not know you or me very well will think that I could have saved you if I were willing to spend money. But that I did not care to do so. Surely there can be no worse reputation than to be thought to value money more highly than one's friends, for the majority will not believe that you yourself were not willing to leave prison while we were eager for you to do so. Socrates. My good Crito, why should we care so much for what the majority think? The most reasonable people, to whom one should pay more attention, will believe that things were done as they were done. Crito. You see, Socrates, that one must also pay attention to the opinion of the majority. Your present situation makes clear that the majority can inflict, not the least, but pretty well the greatest evils if one is slandered among them. Socrates. Would that the majority could inflict the greatest evils, for they would then be capable of the greatest good, and that would be fine. But now they cannot do either. They cannot make a man either wise or foolish, but they inflict things haphazardly. Crito. That may be so. But tell me this, Socrates, are you anticipating that I and your other friends would have trouble with the informers if you escaped from here, as having stolen you away? And that we should be compelled to lose all our property or pay heavy fines and suffer other punishment besides? If you have any such fear, forget it. We would be justified in running this risk to save you, and worse, if necessary. Do follow my advice and do not act differently. Socrates. I do have these things in mind, Crito, and also many others. Crito. Have no such fear. It is not much money that some people require to save you and get you out of here. Further, do you not see that those informers are cheap, and that not much money would be needed to deal with them? My money is available, and is, I think, sufficient. If, because of your affection for me, you feel you should not spend any of mine, there are those strangers here ready to spend money. One of them, Simmias the Theban, has brought enough for this very purpose. Cebes, too, and a good many others. So, as I say, do not let this fear make you hesitate to save yourself, nor let what you said in court trouble you, that you would not know what to do with yourself if you left Athens, for you would be welcomed in many places to which you might go. If you want to go to the Thessaly, I have friends there who will greatly appreciate you and keep you safe, so that no one in Thessaly will harm you. Besides, Socrates, I do not think that what you are doing is just, to give up your life when you can save it, and to hasten your fate as your enemies would hasten it, and indeed have hastened it in their wish to destroy you. Moreover, I think you are betraying your sons by going away and leaving them, when you could bring them up and educate them. You thus show no concern for what their fate may be. They will probably have the usual fate of orphans. Either one should not have children, or one should share with them to the end the toil of upbringing and education. You seem to me to choose the easiest path, whereas one should choose the path a good and courageous man would choose, particularly when one claims throughout one's life to care for virtue. I feel ashamed on your behalf and on behalf of us, your friends, lest all that has happened to you be thought due to cowardice on our part. The fact that your trial came to court when it need not have done so, the handling of the trial itself, and now this absurd ending which will be thought to have got beyond our control through some cowardice and unmanliness on our part, since we did not save you, or you save yourself, when it was possible and could be done if we had been of the slightest use. Consider, Socrates, whether this is not only evil, but shameful, both for you and for us. Take counsel with yourself, or rather the time for counsel is past, and the decision should have been taken. And there is no further opportunity, for this whole business must be ended tonight. If we delay now, then it will no longer be possible. It will be too late. Let me persuade you on every count, Socrates, and do not act otherwise. Socrates. My dear Crito, your eagerness is worth much if it should have some right aim. If not, then the greater your keenness, the more difficult it is to deal with. We must therefore examine whether we should act in this way or not, as not only now but at all times I am the kind of man who listens to nothing within me but the argument that on reflection seems best to me. I cannot, now that this fate has come upon me, discard the arguments I used. They seem to me much the same. I value and respect the same principles as before, and if we have no better arguments to bring up at this moment, be sure that I shall not agree with you, not even if the power of the majority were to frighten us with more bogies, as if we were children, with threats of incarcerations and executions and confiscation of property. How should we examine this matter most reasonably? Would it be by taking up first your argument about the opinions of men, whether it is sound in every case that one should pay attention to some opinions but not to others? Or was that well spoken before the necessity to die came upon me, but now it is clear that this was said in vain for the sake of argument, that it was in truth play and nonsense? I am eager to examine together with you, Crito, whether this argument will appear in any way different to me in my present circumstances, or whether it remains the same, whether we are to abandon it or believe it. It was said on every occasion by those who thought they were speaking sensibly, as I have just now been speaking, that one should greatly value some people's opinions but not others. Does that seem to you a sound statement? You, as far as a human being can tell, are exempt from the likelihood of dying tomorrow, so the present misfortune is not likely to lead you astray. Consider then, do you not think it a sound statement that one must not value all the opinions of men, but some and not others, nor the opinions of all men, but those of some and not of others? What do you say? Is this not well said? Crito. It is. Socrates. One should value the good opinions and not the bad ones. And not the bad ones? Sorry. Crito. Yes. Socrates. The good opinions are those of wise men, the bad ones those of foolish men? Crito. Of course. Socrates. Come then. What of statements such as this? Should a man professionally engaged in physical training pay attention to the praise and blame and opinion of any man, or to those of one man only, namely a doctor or trainer? Crito. To those of one only. Socrates. He should therefore fear the blame and welcome the praise of that one man, and not those of the many? Crito. Obviously. Socrates. He must then act and exercise, eat and drink in the way the one, the trainer and the one who knows, thinks right, not all the others? Crito. That is so. Socrates. Very well. And if he disobeys the one, but disregards his opinion and his praises while valuing those of the many who have no knowledge, will he not suffer harm? Crito. Of course. Socrates. What is that harm? Where does it tend? And what part of the man who disobeys does it affect? Crito. Obviously the harm is to his body which it ruins. Socrates. Well said. So with other matters, not to enumerate them all, and certainly with actions just and unjust, shameful and beautiful, good and bad, about which we are now deliberating, should we follow the opinion of the many and fear it, or that of the one, if there is one who has knowledge of these things, and before whom we feel fear and shame more than before all the others? If we do not follow his directions, we shall harm and corrupt that part of ourselves that is improved by just actions and destroyed by unjust actions. Or is there nothing in this? Crito. I think there certainly is, Socrates. Socrates. Come now, if we ruined that which is improved by health and corrupted by disease, by not following the opinions of those who know, is life worth living for us when that is ruined? And that is the body, is it not? Crito. Yes. Socrates. And is life worth living with a body that is corrupted and in bad condition? Crito. In no way. Socrates. And is life worth living for us with that part of us corrupted that unjust action harms and just action benefits? Or do we think that part of us, whatever it is, that is concerned with justice and injustice is inferior to the body? Crito, not at all. Socrates, it is more valuable? Crito, much more. Socrates, we should not then think so much of what the majority will say about us, but what he will say who understands justice and injustice, the one, that is, and the truth itself, so that in the first place you were wrong to believe that we should care for the opinion of the many about what is just, beautiful, good, and their opposites. But, someone might say, the many are able to put us to death. Crito, that too is obvious, Socrates, and someone might well say so. Socrates, and, my admirable friend, that argument that we have gone through remains, I think, as before. Examine the following statement in turn as to whether it stays the same or not, that the most important thing is not life, but the good life. Crito says, Crito, Crito, it stays the same. Socrates, and that the good life, the beautiful life, and the just life are the same. Does that still hold or not? Crito, it does hold. Socrates, as we have agreed so far, we must examine next whether it is just for me to try to get out of here when the Athenians have not acquitted me. If it is seen to be just, we will try to do so. If it is not, we will abandon the idea. As for those questions you raise about money, reputation, the upbringing of children, Crito, those considerations in truth belong to those people who easily put men to death, and would bring them to life again if they could, without thinking. I mean the majority of men. For us, however, since our argument leads to this, the only valid consideration, as we were saying just now, is whether we should be acting rightly in giving money and gratitude to those who will lead me out of here, and ourselves helping with the escape, or whether in truth we shall do wrong in doing all this. If it appears that we should be acting unjustly, then we have no need at all to take into account whether we should have to die if we stay here and keep quiet, or suffer in another way, rather than do wrong. Crito, I think you put that beautifully, Socrates, but see what we should do. Socrates, let us examine the question together, my dear friend, and if you can make any objection while I am speaking, make it and I will listen to you. But if you have no objection to make, my dear Crito, then stop now from saying the same thing so often, that I must leave here against the will of the Athenians. I think it important to persuade you before I act, and not to act against your wishes. See whether the start of our inquiry is adequately stated, and try to answer what I ask you in the way you think best. Crito, I shall try. Socrates, do we say that one must never in any way do wrong willingly, or must one do wrong in one way and not another? Is to do wrong never good or admirable, as we have agreed in the past, or have all these former agreements been washed out during the last few days? Have we at our age failed to notice for some time that in our serious discussions we were no different from children? Above all, is the truth such as we used to say it was, whether the majority agree or not, and whether we must still suffer worse things than we do now, or will be treated more gently, that nonetheless wrongdoing or injustice is in every way harmful and shameful to the wrongdoer? Do we say so or not? Crito, we do. Socrates, so one must never do wrong. Crito, certainly not. Socrates, nor must one, when wronged, inflict wrong in return, as the majority believe, since one must never do wrong. Crito, that seems to be the case. Socrates, come now, should one do harm to anyone or not, Crito? Crito, one must never do so. Socrates, well then, if one is done harm, is it right, as the majority say, to do harm in return, or is it not? Crito, it is never right. Socrates, doing people harm is no different from wrongdoing. Crito, that is true. Socrates, one should never do wrong in return, nor do any man harm, no matter what he may have done to you. And Crito, see that you do not agree to this, contrary to your belief, for I know that only a few people hold this view or will hold it, and there is no common ground between those who hold this view and those who do not, but they inevitably despise each other's views. So then consider very carefully whether we have this view in common, and whether you agree, and let this be the basis of our deliberation, that neither to do wrong nor to return a wrong is ever correct, nor is doing harm in return for harm done. Or do you disagree and do not share this view as a basis for our discussion? I have held it for a long time and still hold it now. But if you think otherwise, tell me now. If, however, you stick to our former opinion, then listen to the next point. Crito, I stick to it and agree with you. So say on. Socrates, then I state the next point, or rather I ask you, when one has come to an agreement that is just with someone, should one fulfill it or cheat on it? Crito, one should fulfill it. Socrates, see what follows from this. If we leave here without the city's permission, are we harming people whom we should least do harm to? And are we sticking to a just agreement or not? Crito, I cannot answer your question, Socrates. I do not know. Socrates, look at it this way. If, as we were planning to run away from here, or whatever one should call it, the laws and the state came and confronted us and asked, tell me, Socrates, what are you intending to do? Do you not by this action you are attempting intend to destroy us, the laws, and indeed the whole city, as far as you are concerned? Or do you think it possible for a city not to be destroyed if the verdicts of its courts have no force but are nullified and set at naught by private individuals? What shall we answer to this and other such arguments? For many things could be said, especially by an orator on behalf of this law we are destroying, which orders that the judgments of the courts shall be carried out. Shall we say in answer, the city wronged me, and its decision was not right? Shall we say that, or what? Crito, yes, by Zeus, Socrates, that is our answer. Socrates, then what if the law said, was that the agreement between us, Socrates, or was it to respect the judgments that the city came to? And if we wondered at their words, they would perhaps add, Socrates, do not wonder at what we say, but answer, since you are accustomed, to proceed by question and answer. Come now, what accusation do you bring against us and the city, that you should try to destroy us? Did we not, first, bring you to birth, and was it not through us that your father married your mother and begat you? Tell us, do you find anything to criticize in those of us who are concerned with marriage? And I would say that I do not criticize them, or in those of us concerned with the nurture of babies, and the education that you too received. Were those assigned to that subject not right to instruct your father to educate you in the arts and in physical culture? And I would say that they were right. Very well, they would continue. And after you were born and nurtured and educated, could you, in the first place, deny that you are our offspring and servant, both you and your forefathers? If that is so, do you think that we are on an equal footing as regards the right, and that whatever we do to you, it is right for you to do to us? You were not on an equal footing with your father as regards the right, nor with your master if you had one, so as to retaliate for anything they did to you, to revile them if they reviled you, to beat them if they beat you, and so on and many other things. Do you think that you have this right to retaliation against your country and its laws? That if we undertake to destroy you, and think it is right to do so, you can undertake to destroy us, as far as you can, in return? And will you say that you are right to do so? You, who truly care for virtue, is your wisdom such as not to realize that your country is to be honored more than your mother, your father, and all your ancestors, that it is more to be revered, and more sacred, and that it counts for more among the gods and sensible men? that you must worship it, yield to it, and placate it, or placate it, its anger more than your father's? You must either persuade it or obey its orders, and endure in silence whatever it instructs you to endure, whether blows or bonds, and if it leads you into war to be wounded or killed, you must obey. To do so is right, and one must not give way or retreat or leave one's post. But both in war and in courts and everywhere else, one must obey the commands of one's city and country, or persuade it as to the nature of justice. It is impious to bring violence to bear against your mother or father. It is much more so to use it against your country. What shall we say in reply, Crito, that the laws speak the truth or not? Crito: I think they do. Socrates: Reflect now, Socrates, the laws might say, that if what we say is true, you are not treating us rightly by planning to do what you are planning. We have given you birth, nurtured you, educated you. We have given you and all other citizens a share of all the good things we could. Even so, by giving every Athenian the opportunity, once arrived at voting age, and having observed the affairs of the city and us the laws, we proclaim that if we do not please him, he can take his possessions and go wherever he pleases. Not one of our laws raises any obstacle or forbids him. If he is not satisfied with us or the city, if one of you wants to go and live in a colony or wants to go anywhere else and keep his property, we say, however, that whoever of you remains, when he sees how we conduct our trials and manage the city in other ways, has in fact come to an agreement with us to obey our instructions. We say that the one who disobeys does wrong in three ways. First, because in us he disobeys his parents, also those who brought him up, and because in spite of his agreement, he neither obeys us nor, if we do something wrong, does he try to persuade us to do better. Yet, we only propose things, we do not issue savage commands to do whatever we order. We give two alternatives, either to persuade us or to do what we say. He does neither. We do say that you too, Socrates, are open to those charges if you do what you have in mind. You would be among, not the least, but the most guilty of the Athenians. And if I should say, why so, they might well be right to upbraid me and say that I am among the Athenians who most definitely came to that agreement with them. They might well say, Socrates, we have convincing proofs that we and the city were congenial to you. You would not have dwelt here most consistently of all the Athenians if the city had not been exceedingly pleasing to you. You have never left the city, even to see a festival, nor for any other reason except military service. You have never gone to stay in any other city as people do. You have had no desire to know whether city or other laws. We and our city satisfied you. So decisively did you choose us and agree to be a citizen under us. Also, you have had children in the city, thus showing that it was congenial to you. Then, at your trial, you could have assessed your penalty at exile if you wished, and you are now attempting to do against the city's wishes that you could then have done with her consent. Then you prided yourself that you did not resent death, but you chose, as you said, death in preference to exile. Now, however, those words do not make you ashamed, and you pay no heed to us, these laws, as you plan to destroy us, and you act like the meanest type of slave by trying to run away, contrary to your commitments and your agreement to live as a citizen under us. First, then, answer us on this very point, whether we speak the truth when we say that you agreed, not only in words but by your deeds, to live in accordance with us. What are we to say to that, Crito? Must we not agree? Crito: We must, Socrates. Socrates: Surely they might say, you are breaking the commitments and agreements that you made with us without compulsion or deceit, and under no pressure of time for deliberation. You have had 70 years during which you have gone away if you did not like us, and if you thought our agreements unjust, you did not choose to go to Sparta or to Crete. which you are always saying are well governed, nor to any other city, Greek or foreign. You have been away from Athens less than the lame or the blind or other handicapped people. It is clear that this city has been outstandingly more congenial to you than to other Athenians. And so have we, the laws, for what city can please without laws? Will you, then, not now stick to our agreements? You will, Socrates, if we can persuade you, and not make yourself a laughing-stock by leaving the city. For consider what good you will do yourself or your friends by breaking our agreements and committing such a wrong. It is pretty obvious that your friends will themselves be in danger of exile, disfranchisement, and loss of property. As for yourself, if you go to one of the nearby cities, Thebes or Megara, both are well governed. You will arrive as an enemy to their government. All who care for their city will look on you with suspicion. As a destroyer of the laws, you will also strengthen the conviction of the jury that they passed the right sentence on you. For anyone who destroys the laws could easily be thought to corrupt the young and the ignorant. Or will you avoid cities that are well governed and men who are civilized? If you do this, will your life be worth living? Will you have social intercourse with them and not be ashamed to talk to them? And what will you say? The same as you did here, that virtue and justice are man's most precious possession, along with lawful behavior and the laws? Do you not think that Socrates would appear to be an unseemly kind of person? One must think so, or will you leave those places and go to Crito's friends in Thessaly? There you will find the greatest license and disorder, and they may enjoy hearing from you how absurdly you escaped from prison in some disguise, in a leather jerkin or some other things in which escapees wrap themselves, thus altering your appearance. Will there be no one to say that you, likely to live but a short time more, were so greedy for life that you transgressed the most important laws? Possibly, Socrates, if you do not annoy anyone, but if you do, many disgraceful things will be said about you. You will spend your time ingratiating yourself with all men, and be at their beck and call. What will you do in Thessaly but feast, as if you had gone to a banquet in Thessaly? As for those conversations of yours about justice and the rest of virtue, where will they be? You say that you want to live for the sake of your children, that you may bring them up and educate them. How so? Will you bring them up and educate them by taking them to Thessaly and making strangers of them, that they may enjoy that too? Or not so? But they will be better brought up and educated here while you are alive, though absent? Yes, your friends will look after them. Will they look after them if you go and live in Thessaly, but not if you go away to the underworld? If those who profess themselves your friends are any good at all, one must assume that they will be persuaded by us who have bought you up, Socrates. Do not value either your children or your life or anything else more than goodness, in order that when you arrive in Hades, you may have all this as your defense before the rulers there. If you do this deed, you will not think it better or more just or more pious here, nor will any one of your friends, nor will it be better for you when you arrive yonder. As it is, if you depart, after being wronged, not by us, the laws, but by men. But if you depart after shamefully returning wrong for wrong and mistreatment for mistreatment, after breaking your agreements and commitments with us, after mistreating those you should mistreat least, yourself, your friends, your country, and us, we shall be angry with you while you are still alive. And our brothers, the laws of the underworld, will not receive you kindly, knowing that you tried to destroy us as far as you could. Do not let Crito persuade you rather than us to do what he says. Crito, my dear friend, be assured that these are the words I seem to hear, as the Corybants seem to hear the music of their flutes, and the echo of these words resounds in me, and makes it impossible for me to hear anything else. As far as my present beliefs go, if you speak in opposition to them, you will speak in vain. However, if you think you can accomplish anything, speak. Crito, I have nothing to say, Socrates. Socrates, let it be then, Crito. And let us act in this way, since this is the way the God is leading us. And that is the end of Crito.